Peter, this now takes us, so we've covered a little bit of Europe and what's to come on social democracies. Let's talk about some of the other big countries, China, Russia, Iran, to some extent, most of the countries in the Middle East. I mean, I like to call them all thugitarians. They aren't dictatorships, but I have no idea what you want to call them. But they flex their might by controlling the people in some way, shape, or form. So let's talk about what happens to these countries as we move forward with the disunited nations.
Sure. Well, it's kind of fun. One of the common characteristics of these countries, thugitarians, I'm going to totally steal that, is that they don't have a large industrial and educational base, because you can't give the people education without giving them a degree of freedom in order to do what they want and develop technologies and develop infrastructure. So they're always going to be kind of stilted economically. What that means is Russia and Iran specifically are completely dependent on raw commodity exports. Now, here's a fun thing. Those raw commodity exports, for the most part, are shipped by ocean, which means that they're completely dependent upon the American security guarantees to the world. If you back that away, both of them lose the ability to make most of their export earnings, which is their entire economy, because they have a stilted economic system. So in the last 20 years, these two countries has evolved into two of the countries most dependent upon American involvement. And if the Americans leave, that's it. Iran definitely is the country that's going to be hurt harder of the two. They export all of their crude from one pipe that goes to one island in the extreme depths of the Persian Gulf. And so if the Persian Gulf gets closed, they suffer more than the Saudis now.
You're presupposing that if the United States is not patrolling the waters, that the waters are then dangerous. How do you come up with that?
Well, that's pretty straightforward. The United States Navy is the only true blue water navy in the world, and one aircraft carrier battle group out of the United States is more powerful than all the long-range ships of everybody else combined. The Chinese technically have more ships in the water than the Navy does, but all but about 50 of those are incapable of sailing more than 1,000 miles from home. So just very few countries can go anywhere with distance, and convoying any sort of cargo is very difficult. So if you think about what happens in this environment the next time there's an energy crisis, whether it's in Ukraine or Belarus or Iraq or whatever, there's just not enough. So every country in the world is going to have to say, okay, do we just assume that we're all going to get along and we all take a 10% cut? Or do we take actions into our own hands, interface with the energy producers that are close to us, and make sure that we get what we need? And if you do that, the countries in Northeast Asia are the ones that are left hanging because they're the farthest from the oil supplies. China doesn't have a blue water navy. Japan does. It's that simple.
Got it. But that's supposing that the waters become dangerous if we're not in them.
Yeah, as long as everyone gets along and no one has an argument and no one puts their own interests over everybody else, we'll all be fine.
That's a lot of ifs.
Yeah. You know when that's happened in history? Never.
Thank you.